Hi everyone, Dreki here, and this is a comparison between the Akaso V50X and the Campark V30. These are two of the better cameras that I've tested and reviewed this year, and although they're almost identical, there are some subtle differences in the way they process video and audio. So without further ado, let's get right to it. Whoa! Of course, I go straight into a bush on my best take. Well, we're gonna use it anyways. So this is the Akaso V50X versus the Campark V30. These two cameras are pretty much twins, just wearing different clothing. From the outside they look a little bit different, but when it comes down to it in terms of image quality, they are very, very similar. But there are some subtle differences that make one camera better than the other, so let's get straight into it. Build quality wise, it's a tie. Both cameras are made out of matte plastic and they feel kind of hollow, making them feel more like a cheaper action cam than a premium one. That's not to say that the build quality is particularly bad, as they are fairly well put together. There's no real creaks or anything, they're just a little bit hollow and light feeling. And as far as these cameras being twins, look into the battery door here and you can see that the circuit board is exactly the same. User interface as well is the same, but Akaso V50X has the edge here. Swiping left and right switches modes, and then pressing the settings icon will open the settings menu. But the reason the V50X has the edge is because of larger text on a white background. Makes it easier to read in all situations versus the Campark's menu, which are transparent, and if things get bright, it can be difficult to see the menu. This user interface is great though, easy to navigate, easy to understand, and you can use buttons or touch. So during the intro you might have noticed that the Akaso V50X is a little bit smashed. That was my fault, not the camera's fault. I kind of dropped it while it was outside of the protective case. But just for the sake of this comparison, I am letting you know that every single shot with the Akaso V50X is gonna have this pretty noticeable smudge in it. This is not normal, and this is because when I dropped the camera, not only did it smash the back, but it also chipped the lens. But honestly, if you look at the Campark V30, these two cameras are so similar that it should give you an idea of what the video quality is like. The only difference I could see comparing clips back and forth was that the contrast on the Akaso V50X is slightly lower than on the Campark V30. This just means that the Akaso V50X maintains a little bit more detail in dark shadows, whereas with the V30, it is a necessity to shoot with WDR turned on. With WDR turned off on the Campark V30, there are very few details in the shadows. It tends to make them a little bit too dark, so I would recommend leaving that setting on. As for color processing, side by side, if there wasn't the giant smudge on the Akaso V50X footage, I honestly would not be able to tell which camera shot which. Both cameras manage color very well in the daytime in about 95% of situations, and I'd say that this is a higher consistency than the vast majority of budget cameras I've tested. They both have a ton of detail in 4K mode, but I'm going to step down to 1080p for the rest of this review because my computer fans are screaming at me while I'm trying to edit this. So yep, take one last look at that excellent detail and then compare that to the 1080p mode. It's really not that bad for a budget camera, but it could be better. It feels like the details are compressed in a way that makes things a little bit blocky compared to the 4K mode, and this is the case for both cameras. The audio from the V50X out of camera is just too quiet. But I wouldn't say that the Campark's audio quality is really that much better than the Akaso's, it's just louder. It makes it easier to recommend the V30 though, because this camera requires less editing to get something useful. And if you do boost the audio of the V50X in post-production, it can cause some fuzziness and distortion. So here are a few unedited samples. I'm not sure if you can tell, but it is super windy right now. Where I'm standing, the wind is blowing straight down this path and over top of the cameras, so I'm not sure how this audio comparison is going to sound. But I am trying to compare the audio between the Campark V30 and the Akaso V50X. So if you can hear me, that's good. If not, well, it is a test of a pretty windy situation here. So. Hey everyone, Dreki here, and this is a quick comparison between the Campark V30 and the Akaso V50X. Hey everyone, Dreki here, and this is a quick comparison between the Campark V30 and the Akaso V50X. Are they recording? I can't really tell. There's no light on the front, and the top light, it doesn't flash while they're recording, so it's really hard to see without actually turning the camera around and looking at the screen. Anyways, today we're comparing the Akaso V50X and the Campark V30. I think that in my car here is the only place out of the wind to actually test the audio quality. So I'm about maybe 1.5 feet away from the camera right now. They're on my steering wheel while I'm just sitting back in my car here. So that's pretty much the biggest win for the V30 in my books. Everything else is more or less the same. Yes, the contrast is a little bit higher, but turning on WDR does help with that. The still photos, absolutely identical. I would not be able to tell which camera shot which. Image stabilization, excellent on both cameras so long as you're going straight. A little bit of stuttering if you turn corners too quickly. Night and low light, better managed than the vast majority of budget cameras. And sure, it is super noisy and doesn't look all that good, but I can read things like license plates. I can see what's going on the roads. And here, I'll show you a clip from the V30. This shot is done at 1080p with image stabilization turned off. And yeah, you can tell what's going on pretty well. More or less, street signs are readable, license plates on parked cars are readable. The colors are a little bit inaccurate because these are the bright orange street lights. Nonetheless, I would consider this footage very usable, and it's about the same on the Akaso V50X. Now, compare this to the DB Power D5. The difference is astounding. It's almost night and day. One camera is so much better than the other. And then look at, for example, the Runme R3, another camera I tested recently. The V30 and V50X is just that much better. So these two cameras are very much the same, but only one of them can be the winner, and for me that's the Campark V30, just because the audio is louder and more usable out of the camera. Back when I reviewed the Akaso V50X, I thought, wow, this camera is great, the image stabilizer is excellent, but I had trouble recommending it outright because the audio quality was so bad. The Campark V30 on the other hand does have its own flaws. Like I mentioned, you have to shoot with the WDR turned on for the best quality, but no budget cam is perfect, and there also tends to be a price advantage of about $20 compared to the Akaso V50X. So if you're stuck between these two cameras for reasons of audio quality and price, the Campark V30 is the way to go. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Akaso V50X versus Campark V30. A little bit of low light footage here going into this cave. You can hear the second we get into the cave, all that wind noise is gone. Makes things a little bit easier to synchronize in post-production. Anyways, it's going to get very, very dark right now, and I'm curious how these cameras will do. Oh, this is pretty cool. Look at that. Wow, that looks real nice.